So this year, I began mixing my films in 5.1 surround. And of course, as I begin to learn things, I want to know what could possibly come next. And through scouring the internet, I seemed to realize that there was a bit of a cycle, and I believe that everyone can benefit from hearing about it. So this is how surround sound happened and how it might go. Back in the 1950s, television was our new thing on the block. Movie theater owners were quite afraid of television and didn't want to lose relevance. So they thought to themselves, let's improve the audience experience so that you just can't get enough of cinema. Trials of stereo audio attempted to give cinema that edge. Generally speaking, most people have 2 ears, and 2 channels reflects how we experience hearing. There's an issue in that. Film was not necessarily concerned with reflecting life to the degree it is today. The bottom line is stereo did not work because the people didn't want it. Our genres weren't ready and our creativity wasn't ready. But as time went on, so did the kind of films we decided to make. And that greatly expanded the kind of inventions we can integrate into this new, cool way of telling stories. The audience was ready to comply with these changes. Audio quality was able to improve. They came out with new 70mm magnetic mixers, which had a consistent signal-to-noise ratio. This meant that each channel would sound alike. A new type of experiment was put in place, known as the effects channel. This specifically designated speaker sought to envelop audiences in a continuous low-level ambient sound. At minimum, stereo audio became accepted and something that audiences wanted to see in the theater. But it did not stick yet. In the mid-1970s, Dolby Stereo enters the market. They focused on creating a uniform matrixing technique, which was first used for quad home stereo, which unfortunately was a topic we didn't have time to cover. Basically, these playback channels were configured in a way that was uniform and able to be steered between by mixers. And by the early 1980s, high-quality stereo was the norm. In 1982, Dolby Surround came out as the grand new option. This format was able to gain considerable marketplace favor. The channel configuration was one of the best laid out because it was established particularly for the cinema industry. And Dolby Surround found itself in a unique position. The available technology for 1990s filmmaking couldn't support everyone's version of 5.1. Media options were not able to hold the amount of data required to give off a high-quality product. Specific discs had to be used over the dominant Laserdisc and DVD. In 2006, Blu-ray compatible disc players entered our everyday entertainment and media market. This advancement allowed more competitors to play alongside Dolby. The threat of market competition is going to make brands reflect on their user experience and creative potential as a whole. Competitors raised the stakes, and we moved from 5.1 to 6.1 and 7.1. So 5.1 is accepted by everyone, but why are we not all accepting Dolby Atmos? What's the problem? The benefit of Dolby Atmos is also the downfall of Dolby Atmos. This format features an overhead component, which adds a new dimension when you bounce sounds off of your ceiling. Adding an element which utilizes physics, math, all of the above, pretty much limits who has access to create and display a Dolby Atmos mix. From my personal experience speaking with Post Audio houses in Chicago, getting a proper setup was not an easy task. Some places have told me they had to reconstruct rooms or navigate the less than helpful spreadsheets sent to them by Dolby. And judging from the past, I don't see this overhead dimension really sticking until that installation process becomes simplified. And it has to become simplified without compromising on quality, which is quite the task. I believe this cycle, I've noticed, will eventually do its thing. Perhaps these incremental inventions will push three-dimensional sound over the edge and into everywhere. The future of our sound design conventions are unknown, but the cyclical nature of media's evolution will power through. So the little shtick you just listened to was a project/assignment that I did for another class earlier. And I have a lot more information to share, as well as I think that surround is not the issue I used to believe it is. I have had the privilege to work alongside and actually make content that is 7.1, 0.2, or 0.4. I forget exactly what it is, but I have the privilege to actually get involved with these things. In short, the answer is your mixer just needs to be a really good surround mixer. End of story. I have been using my headphones and creating content in stereo, drafting up plans for what I envision to happen with the surround, giving those notes to my mixer, and the mixer does them. I don't think that this is the ideal situation, and I don't think that this extra time we spend doing this would be efficient, economic for a post house to do, but it does work, and it's not the end of the world. I believe that there are other issues that are the end of the world. People are using subtitles more than ever, and it's not necessarily because the dialogue editor did a bad job.
So why do you think that we all feel like we need subtitles now?
I get asked this question all the time. All the time. It's something that it doesn't have a simple, straightforward answer. It's very layered and very complex.
And after talking to Austin for almost 2 hours, it's true. It's a very layered and complex topic. But everything kept pointing back to one main thing. Technology that got us from this
You should be kissed and off.
No, Richard, no, what has happened to your life?
to this.
Mom, I just woke up. I'll slim waist.
One reason why we are struggling to hear our dialogue is because of the issue of dynamic range. Most specs want us to have our loudest sound hit -2 decibels and never go any louder than that. For reference, your dynamic range is the difference between the quietest and loudest sound in your mix. So if there's an explosion, that explosion is going to hit that -2. But that explosion is exploding the world. So it needs to be massive. So we need to have that huge range between where our explosion happens and where our dialogue happens. And then we just are unable to hear it now because our dialogue is way too low. And these issues, they get muddied with how we change our surround and our mixing.
We made the decision a couple of films ago that we weren't going to mix films for substandard theaters. And this is kind of the crux of the matter. The content that we watch here and here is not mixed for us primarily.
Re-recording mixers mix for the widest surround sound format that is available. Typically like big release films, that is Dolby Atmos, which has true 3D sound up to 128 channels.
There's also an issue of how theaters are playing back and managing their sound systems. Every mixer knows that what you do in this room is never going to sound like it will in another room. But it's starting to get a little bit absurd. The way which we are playing back our media is causing problems. I believe that theaters need to focus on playing back at the exact same level across the whole universe, as well as we need to consider what we are losing from our piss poor TV audio setups, which I know that not everyone can have an amazing TV audio setup. I get it. New technology needs to come out. Our mixing needs to be reconsidered. And we actually have to care about sound. Because let's be honest. I believe that this problem is just going to keep going because nobody honestly cares. Because people just love loud stuff. And I get it. It might take a while for our art form to be played in the way it can be heard and to be appreciated in the way it should be. But I'm hopeful, and I think that the wisest choice for my career is to just keep trying and keep rethinking how I can fix these problems. Coming into the post world, I see a great demand for a new way of mixing.